each other. You know, they're just always fighting. They don't agree. And what I show here is that actually they're like two bickering brothers. They're very much on the same page, and they both serving their father. The father is the herding culture, and they both project the teaching that the animals are just here for us to use, and who they both really attack, who's really the one that they're afraid of is Sophia, which is the deep inner wisdom that we all have as human beings. And so anyway, then there's a chapter on the dilemma of work, which goes into how it's not just women, but also men actually are very much damaged by this whole thing. There's a chapter called the Profiting from Destruction, which goes into the whole environmental dimension of this. I could do a whole talk on that, but just basically when you're growing so much grain and feeding it to animals, it causes incredible water pollution, sewage, the spraying of pesticides and herbicides and fungicides on all these genetically engineered crops causes enormous violence. So to understand the environmental implications and the liberation, really the beauty of it is how when we move to a plant-based diet, our footprint becomes so much smaller. And imagining our culture moving to a plant-based diet is imagining like an entirely different culture that would take just a fraction of the amount of resources and create a fraction of the pollution. So anyway, that, and then there's a chapter called Some Objections Answered, and this is a good book to give to people who maybe are going like, well, why are you a vegetarian, or why are you a vegan, you know. Say, here, read this. And there's these objections. These are all the objections people have to the ideas that I'm saying, right? They'll say, well, what you're saying, you know, I don't know if that's true because, you know, Jesus ate meat, so it must be okay. Or the Indians ate meat, so it must be okay. Or, well, carrots have feelings just like pigs do, so it must be, you know, fine to eat pigs because you eat carrots anyway, or whatever. So anyway, I answer all those objections in here. And then there's the last few chapters are basically to convey that this whole thing is enormously positive, because what it's showing is that we're not some kind of inherently flawed, violent, horrible species that are just condemned to war and violence and domination and competition and fighting. We're born into a culture that has an obsolete mentality, and it ritually injects all of us with this obsolete mentality through food. And once we understand that, when we change our own lives, we can then become a vehicle for the future to create a new world, and we can spread this message. And if we spread this message, and I see it spreading, you know, faster and faster and faster, we can transform our culture. We can